You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to have you here today. I am Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Welcome to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn presents A Better You, lessons from the best coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors. This is a presentation platform where we hear from experts in all fields. Today, I have someone who is an expert in the publishing industry and also as an author. His name is James L. Hill. Let's bring him out. James, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Doctor. How are you? I like to say Doctor.
I like to hear it, Doctor. I worked hard for it, so thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. And before we begin, I just want to explain to our listeners and our viewers how this actually works. So James will be doing a 15-minute presentation. We will actually put up a timer, and then the floor is his. I will spotlight him. I'll mute myself, and then James will share a lesson, and he'll introduce himself in a second and tell us what he's going to present on. And then after he's done, he and I will have a conversation about it. So it's a lesson from an expert, and then we get to just take a step back and say, hey, how'd that feel when you were presenting? And this is what I got out of it. So I'm excited for you to be here, James. I'm going to spotlight you. Before you begin, though, why don't you just tell us who you are, the value you're bringing to this world, and what you'll be presenting today.
Okay. I am James L. Hill, as you can see, and I am an independent publisher and an author. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is for new writers, because RockHill Publishing, the company I own and started about 7 or 8 years ago, we specialize in new authors. We work with new authors. We specialize in bringing out first-time writers or writers who may have been in the business for a little while, but really are looking for a new avenue to go through. So that's what I do. And of course, I have written at least 4 books now, as you can see behind me. And I write in multiple genres. I write in sci-fi, I write in fantasy, and I write adult fiction. So that's where I hone my craft.
That's wonderful. So, James, why don't you tell us the names of your 4 books and just a little bit about each, if you would?
Okay, my 2 crime novels is a series called the Killer series, and it's Killer with a Heart, which is number 1. And I'll just hold it up because it makes it a little easier to see. Glare-wise.
Okay.
Killer with a Heart. Then we have Killer with Black Blood, which is book number 2. And I'm working on book number 3, which is called, well, wait a second, I made a mistake there. Book number 2 is called Killer with 3 Heads. Book number 3, which I'm working on now, is called Killer with Black Blood. Why, that slip came through because I've been working on that one for like almost a month and a half now, doing the second and third edits. So it's right there on the top of my head.
it's near and dear to you.
Yes.
And, as a new author myself, my book's about to be launched in the next week or 2. It's with the editor now. I worked with someone who works with first-time authors like myself, and I really feel like it's such an incredible help, and it's an incredible opportunity to have someone like you to work with a new author.
Oh, thank you. And it is, because a lot of people come to writing books and come to becoming authors and stuff. They really have no idea about the business end of writing. And writing is, authorship is like a 2-pronged approach. You have the artist and you have the business. And most people know about the art of writing. Very few people know what it actually takes to be an author and about the business end of it. And so that's why I started working with new authors, because after putting out several books myself, I felt I could help other people on this journey. I've been in this for quite some time, so I think I can help other people.
Yeah, I love that. How long have you been in this as a published author?
Since 2013.
Okay.
But I wrote books since about 1980 when I actually started writing books, back in around the 80s or so is when I started writing books. And then I finally decided just to go my own and publish and stuff because it became easier. And I'll get into that when I actually start talking about giving some instructions.
Fantastic. What is your lesson that you're going to be presenting today, James?
Okay, I'll be presenting how to become an author and what to do as an author, what your first steps are, and how to write series. Because a lot of people who write their first book immediately, and a lot of people nowadays think that they have to have a series in order to be an author. One book is not going to do it, which it isn't. But they don't actually plan the series out. It kind of like haphazardly thrown together, as is a lot of people's books. When you start writing, sometimes never send out your first draft. Let me just put that out there right now. Your first draft is not what you want to send. So there's a whole art form, and then there's a whole business end of this, and I will talk about the business end more and about the art form itself.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you'll come back and talk to us about the whole marketing aspect was something that was really new to me. Like, if you want to be a best-selling author, what it actually takes, and the pre-selling and the whole. I want to say there's an art to the marketing so that you have an opportunity to try to become a best-selling author. So anyway, we're going to take a break and hear from our sponsors. And then when we come back, I'll spotlight you and we'll be ready for your lesson. How does that sound?
Oh, great.
Okay, wonderful. Let's take a listen. Zane Carson Carruth. She is an international author, and let's watch her clip.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Abella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book Abella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Abella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn presents A Better You, lessons from the best coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors. Our expert today is James L. Hill. He is the owner and the publishing guru to new authors, and he is the owner of RockHill Publishing. Thanks for being here, James.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure. And I'm going to spotlight you, and then I'm going to put up the timer. So just let me do that first, and then I'll mute myself. So are you ready to go?
I am ready to go.
All right. We're excited. Take it away. Here's the timer.
Okay. So I'm going to talk to you today about being a first-time author and what it means to be an author. There are two sides to this. There's the artistic side and there's the business side. And most people do not think of writers as business people, but we are. And most writers don't think of themselves as business people, and they should. Now, here's the difference. If you were an artist, a painter, let's say, and you wanted to paint something, you would paint maybe flowers or people or landscape. That's the art part of it. That's what you do as an artist. Now, what you do as a business end of it, are you an impressionist? Are you a modern artist? Are you some other sort of art? I'm not really an artist, so I can't give you all that kind of stuff. But that would be more toward the business side. Where are you positioning yourself? How are you actually selling your art? Okay, so now let's flip that over to being a writer, an author. You can write in different genres. You could be a romance writer. You could be a sci-fi writer. You could be a fantasy writer. You could be an adult fiction writer. There's all types of genre. That's the art. That is what you're writing. That's the stories that you are telling. Now, the business end of that is, how does your book look? How does it read? What's good and bad about your book? And that's where you have to really focus on the business end of writing. Now, as I said before, your first draft is not what you're sending out to a publisher or anybody else. Your first draft is just you putting down your thoughts, getting your story together, getting that story formulated. What I like to call a skeleton of a book. So you put together your skeleton, you put together your story, you write it all out. You might want to go to 2 or 3 drafts. Now, I've done this in several different ways. Now, at first, I used to write, read, write, which means I would write a couple of chapters, go back, I read through those chapters, then I write the next couple of chapters. I go back, I read through that stuff, and then I write the next couple of chapters. Well, that takes a long time in writing a book that way, like a year, maybe more. Now, the thing about writing and editing at the same time is you get to keep following your story along, and it's hard for you to lose track of where you're at in the story. Now, I happen to be a plotter. There's plotters and pantsers. Plotters, we write out synopsis, we write out our outline, we plan out our entire book before we even start writing. So we know what the story is going to be, where it's going to go. Pantsers just write the book as they think it up, and they just go along with the flow. No right or wrong way to do it. It's all about who you are as a person, how you do these things. Now, along came Nanowright Mode, and I always wanted to do Nanowright Mode because it's the National Novel Writing Month, which means that you write 50,000 words in the month of November. And in order to do that, you can still be a plotter. You can still plan out your entire book, but you don't have time to go back and forth through that book as you're writing. You have to start from the beginning and push your way through 1,666 words a day will get you to 50,000 in the end of the month. And so it's simply writing. There's no editing. You don't check spelling. You don't check anything. You just plow through this novel that you're thinking of. And then comes second draft, third draft, fourth draft, as you refine your novel, as you start putting meat on the bones, as I say. So that first draft is just the bone, just the framework of your novel. You're putting out the story. The second, third, fourth draft, perhaps, you're starting to put meat on the bone. You're starting to fill in the story. You're starting to fill in the characters. You might put some other people in the story that you didn't think of before. And that actually starts filling out your story. Now, there's some other things that you must think about as a new writer. And this is where, when you go to a publisher, the real work begins, because the publisher is going to send it to an editor. And basically, you really should have had an editor before you even sent it to a publisher. Because what an editor does, and I'm not talking about the copy editor who looks for missing periods or misspelled words or things like that. I'm not talking about the grammatical editing. I'm talking about content editing. Somebody who's going to read through your book and tell you where your plot holes are. And for those of you who don't know what a plot hole is where in chapter 3, you have Joe Blow going off to Bora Bora. And then sometime further down the road, chapter 10 or 11, Joe Blow comes back from Bora Bora. But you never said he came back. You never said why he went to Bora Bora. You never said what he did. He all of a sudden just rejoins the story. That's the plot hole, because people who are reading your book want to know, why did he go to Bora Bora? What did he do while he was in Bora Bora? And why is he back in the story now? Okay, so a content editor will point that out to you, that you wrote something that went nowhere and then came back, or went nowhere and never came back. Sometimes you write something and Joe Blow never shows up in the story again. And that's a problem. The other problem could be Joe Blow goes to Bora Bora, and then in chapter 10, John Smith's come back from Bora Bora. Well, your readers are going to wonder, who is John Smith and why did he come back? And that's because as you're writing the book, you forgot the fact that you named the guy Joe Blow in chapter 3, and now he's John Smith in chapter 10. So somebody who's editing your book will find those mistakes for you. And I used to be, well, actually, I still am, a software engineer, which means I write code for computers. And the one thing we always said in software engineering is you cannot find your own mistakes. As a software engineer, we peer review each other's code, because I know what my code is supposed to do. And therefore, I'm not going to find the mistakes that my code does not do or shouldn't do. And the same thing with writing. You know what you wanted to write, and you know how your book is supposed to appear in your head. In your mind, you have the story. You know what everything is. But did you actually put it down on paper? And that's where content editors help you out. Somebody else reads your story and they'll tell you where your plot holes are, where you went off onto tangents that didn't mean anything to the story. And if you go into a tangent that doesn't really move the story forward, it doesn't belong in the story. You can have this wonderful scene and character and everything about, living on another planet somewhere, blah, blah, blah. If your story doesn't deal with space travel, it doesn't belong in there. No matter how well written that piece of the story is, if it doesn't move the story forward, it doesn't belong in the story. And that's what somebody will tell you. That's what your content editor should tell you. So that's part of what you have to have done for your story. Like I said, when I was writing, or when I am writing, and I go back and forth, write, read, then I can find those things. I can find the discontinuities in the story. Because I read back from chapter 1 and I get up to chapter 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I realize, oh, back here in chapter 1, 2, or 3, I said this. Now I'm in chapter 4, 5, or 6, and I'm saying this. And let me just give you a very good example of that. Star Wars. Now, when Star Wars first came out, 4, 5, and 6 was written and shown. At the end of, I think it's at the end of 6, the Jedi, Return of the Jedi, Obi-Wan doesn't know that Leia is Luke's sister. Okay, because when at the end they say, oh, we lost them, we probably going to lose. Yoda tells her, oh, Yoda said, no, there's another one. Okay, go 10 years or 15 years, however long it was, to get to the next part of when they started doing the prequels to Star Wars. You find out Obi-Wan is at the birth of Luke and Leia. So how come at the end of the story, he didn't know Leia was his sister if he was there at the beginning of the story? Which is what happens when you write things out of sequence, when you write series out of sequence. And so for the last 5 minutes, I want to talk about series writing, because as you can see behind me, I have 2 killer books here. Killer with a Heart, Killer with 3 Heads. I'm working on the 3rd book, which is Killer with Black Blood. And then the 4th book, which we call Killer with Ice Eyes. Now, when I started this series, I'd already planned out all 4 books. I knew the series was going to be 4 books. I knew book 1 would deal with this, book 2 is going to deal with that, book 3, book 4. That's the way you should write a series. You should have it all planned out before you start. Now, some people start a series or start a book, and then later on they go back and they decide, oh, let me write book 2. Let me write book 3. Well, that might work if you're really disciplined enough to be able to tie those stories together. It won't work if you're not disciplined enough to tie the story together, because you're going to forget what you wrote in book 1 by the time you get to book 3. I kind of like divorce myself from my books. After I write the book, I put it aside for a month or 2, and then I go back and I read the entire thing over again before I start editing, because I'll forget what part of what I said. And I might think, oh, I should have said this, and realize when I get further down the road, I did say that. I just said it later in the story where it made more sense. And so if you plot out everything for a series from book 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you know what's going in each book, then you avoid those pitfalls of having plot holes, disjointedness, things like that. Now, in my series, The Emerald Lady, whoop, can you see this? Not that well. Okay, there you go. I got to take me out the picture and I put the Emerald Lady in. This book time jumps quite a bit. So it's a book that starts off in this golden age of pirates, which is the 17th century. And then it jumps back to the age of castles. And then it jumps forward to the modern day. So when you write a story that's going to time jump like that, it's very important to know what's happening in each one of those times. This is a historical fiction, fantasy. So I can take some liberties with the story, but because it's a historical fantasy, you are constrained to what happened in what time period. Can't have pirates in the age of castles. That just doesn't work. We didn't have pirates at that time. You can't bring your pirates forward into the modern era, because we really don't have pirates now. We have people who still raid ships and things like that. They're modern day pirates. They're not sailing sail ships. So there's all kinds of different things that happen and that you must be aware of as part of the business of writing. So as far as the artwork goes and writing the stories, you're free to do whatever you like. But when it comes to putting together a book and trying to put together a book that you can sell, there are certain things you must have. You must have a well-written book. You must have a well-edited book. The story got to make sense. Fiction, sci-fi, whatever it is, it has to make sense. Real life doesn't make sense, but books and stories do. And that's part of what I help other people do when they come to RockHill Publishing. Take them on to publish their work. We help them find those plot holes. We help them fix discontinuities in their subject. We help them find characters that have somehow disappeared or changed names. And we all do it. We all wind up switching the name because we forget what we wrote in chapter 1. Therefore, the guy Joe Blow becomes John Smith somewhere down the line. But that's the thing that you must find, you must fix in order to have a very good book and a readable book. And that's what it's all about, readership.
Wow. Congratulations. That was
Thank you.
fantastic. You know, as someone who's just written a book and it's not published yet, you gave me a lot to think about. I'm like, because
You
I
gotta go back and
remember,
read it again and
yeah, I'm
make
going to go
sure.
back and read it again because I remember when I wrote it, I used one guy's name here and then I changed his name by one letter. And I remembered to go back and get that. But you brought up a lot of really good points. So I just want to tell you what a great job you did and just review some of the things that I heard, if that's okay.
Sure, sure.
So I thought your pacing was very good. You obviously knew your content very well. I don't know if you were looking at something for your points to stay on point, but you came across as very natural. Like this was all information that's in your head, and that you're an expert. I loved the fact that you talked about the month of November. I think it's National Writing Month, or I missed the one
Yeah,
letter.
Nanowright Mode.
Okay.
National Novel Writing Month.
Okay, perfect. Novel, thanks. And I thought how interesting that is. And I liked from there, you started talking about when you look at the difference between the art of writing and publishing and the business of it. And you used a lot of really good analogies when you talked about just having bones and then starting to put some meat on the bones. I could visualize that in terms of writing. Something that you brought up I thought was huge was about hiring a content editor. Because how many times do you read something, you're like, wait a minute, what happened to Joe or Jim or Betty? She was here, now she's not here. Somebody else is here. So I thought that was fascinating. And the fact that you brought up plot holes, I'd not heard of that before. And I love the analogy with Joe Blow and Bora Bora and then John Smith, because you can think about that. You know, somebody goes on a trip in this chapter and then they never come back. We don't know what happens to them, but somebody else comes back and they were at the same place where this person was. Did they see him? Did they talk to him? So I thought that was interesting. You can't find your own mistakes. Wow. Okay, we read something over and over again that we wrote, and it's like, no, you got to give it to somebody else. I liked what you talked about in terms of sometimes people will write so many chapters and then they'll want to go back after so many chapters and then they get lost and they have to start again and then it wastes a lot of time. So with your process, it's deliberate. You stay engaged with the story, and this way you can see yourself as you're writing, wait a minute, I missed this, there's a big hole here, doesn't make any sense. Or this was also interesting, you put a whole story in here, a little sub story that's really interesting, but what does it have to do with the main story?
Right. And writers do that. We fall in love with our words.
Yes.
And sometimes they go nowhere, but they're such beautiful words. And hear this from a lot of writers. Oh, but that was such a great passage. And it's like, yes, it was. And cut it out of here and save it for later where it fits, because it doesn't fit in here.
Yes.
That's it. It's the square peg in a round hole, or whatever that say it is. Yeah.
You've got content for the next thing that you're going to write, whatever that is. I loved what you put here. Content must move the story forward.
Yes.
That's huge. I love the space travel reference. And then you went on further. We were talking about series out of sequence, and you brought up Star Wars, and I thought, oh my gosh, he's right on point with that. So it just goes to show you can happen to anyone.
I love Star Wars and the whole thing, but that was a big pet peeve with me when that came up. And I was like, wait a second. Now I seen Star Wars when I was like in my teens, 20, 19, 20, whatever, when it came out. So when they came out with the newer stuff and they got to that point, I was so pissed. I said, wait a second. They didn't go back and watch the original movies to find out that they could have fixed this very easily. And yeah.
It just goes to show you can happen to anyone. So if you want to put something that's quality it sounds to me, and just from my experience, it takes more than you sitting there writing and thinking that then you're going to have that published. You need other sets of eyes to look at it. You need a publisher who knows what they're doing. If you want to have something out there, because your book is your brand, is your reputation, it's who you are, right?
Yep. It's your baby.
Yeah.
It is your baby. And you wouldn't throw your kid outside naked in the snowstorm. Don't send your book out there like that either.
Right, right.
Dress it up.
Exactly. All really good points. We're going to take another commercial break. And when we come back, James, I'd like you to share with us how you actually work with clients and how people can get in touch with you. How does that sound?
Sure. That's great. I can do that.
Okay, perfect. We're going to hear from another author right now, Diane Floyd Boehm, who's actually, she's an international author. She's actually signing books today out in Texas somewhere.
I know Diane.
You know Diane? Oh, that's great.
I know Diane.
Perfect. What a small world. Diane's a sweetheart. We love her here. And let's take a look at her clip.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Story Garden. Your host, Diane Boehm. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Diane Floyd Boehm tells wonderful stories that warm the heart, spark the imagination, and unite people and families across generations. For children, Diane's Harry the Camel connects with all of us who've ever wondered how different our lives might have been if only we'd been born something better, like a wonderful horse instead of an ordinary camel. In the end, we all learn along with Harry that there's nothing better than just being yourself. Diane's Little Girl in the Moon looks down on earthbound children and wonders if they know she's just like them. A story of love, home, and the bond between mother and daughter, its powerful theme that we're each of us different yet all of us the same plants a seed in children that promises to blossom within a loving and trusting grown-up. Diane's new biography, Rise, recounts the experiences of her grandmother, Ruby, to reveal the hidden strength of the human spirit. Ruby's story inspires all of us to become the best versions of ourselves. You'll find all of Diane's delightful books and much more at DianeFloydBoehm.com. Visit DianeFloydBoehm.com. That's DianeFloydBoehm.com.
Welcome back here on Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn presents A Better You. We are here with my guest, James L. Hill, who just did his presentation, and we are having a conversation about it. So, James, how is it that you work with people? What does that process look like?
Okay, well, I just actually reopened up this submission page on RockHillPublishing.com. So that's how people can get in touch with us. And we do the standard submission, which is we want a synopsis of the story. We want the character outline, who the characters are, major and minor characters, something about them. And then we also want to have the first two chapters, one of the middle chapters, and the end chapter, the last chapter. We need to know how your book is going to end up, because we need to know. We can't publish a book that we don't know the end. So when we ask for submissions and when people send us submissions, those are the things we want. Now, the first two chapters is because we need to know how the book begins. How do you actually go into the story? How does it take off and things like that? And then we have the middle chapter, which we leave up to you. So send us your best chapter from the middle of the book. Because what we're looking for is continuity. Does the energy level stay the same? Does the story level stay the same? We want to make sure that you don't start off with a blockbuster type of beginning and everything's out there and it's great, and then everything falls flat on its face. So we want that kind of, we want to make sure that the book has a good energy level throughout. And then, like I said, we have to know how the story ends, because you got to know how the story ends if you're going to publish it. And then if we go through all that stuff and we give you a critique of your story, and we tell you whether or not it's for us, because not everything is going to be for everybody. So we can't publish everything that comes to us, and nor should we. RockHill Publishing publishes sci-fi, fantasy, uh, adult fiction, or general fiction, and romance. So those are the four. So we don't really publish poetry. We don't publish biographies. We don't publish, you know, the dozen other genres that are out there. Not that we couldn't if we find something that's really good, but we really like to stick to our wheelhouse. But those are the things we know and we're good at. And therefore, if you want to publish a poetry book, you should go to somebody who publishes poetry, who read poetry, and can tell you whether or not it's the right target and how it should be done. Don't come to me. I don't read poetry. I used to write poetry, but that was years and years ago, and it probably wasn't that good because I don't write poetry anymore.
I love your candor and your authenticity. So before we close out the show, I wanted to ask you, when did you realize you had a real business? And what I mean by that is I watch Shark Tank a lot, and you always hear like somebody comes on and they have this business, and somebody will say, oh, that was a hobby. And they're like, no, it's a business. So you have a real business. And so for people out there who are watching and wondering, you started writing a book at some point, and you mentioned, you do some other things too. When did you realize that this publishing business was a real business and not a hobby?
Well, for me, I always thought about myself as being an author. I also thought about myself as being a publisher, because when I went through the traditional sending off stuff to the publisher, and I come from New York. I lived in New York City. And so back when I was very young, in my teens and 20s, I took a job as a paper boy. So I would deliver in the New York Times. Now, not the type of paper boy that ride down the street throwing papers at people's doors. No, I had these big 20, 30-pound bags of New York Times that I'm delivering to the office building. Well, I took that job so I can get access to the publishing companies that are in New York. And I went through not only delivering the papers to these companies, I also was sliding through my short stories and things like that to the magazine company in the hopes that I can get published. I was trying to bypass all of the other things and get it directly to the publishers and to the editors and things and those people. So doing that, sending things off to the publishing company, and realizing how hard it is to actually break into publishing and to actually get published. And it's not really because you're not good as a writer. It's because so many other people are also doing it. And therefore, I decided once I learned how to do it, and like I said, I'm a software engineer, so I already have experience in desktop publishing. I have experience in word processing. I have all these types of experience with all these types of programs. And once I learned how to actually hone that talent and that skill, I realized not only could I publish my own books, but I could also publish other people's books. I got an editor who was very good. She's from South Africa, and she was an English teacher, and she really liked editing. See, and that's one of the things you have to realize. You have to find people who like what they do, okay? Because in order to find an editor, you really need somebody who, first off, knows editing, knows the job, but also likes to do it. Because if they don't like to do it, they're not going to do a good job. I'm a programmer. I like programming. So if you come to me and say, hey, we need a program that would do X, Y, and Z, I'm right there. I'm good at that. I like doing that. I can do that for you. If you tell me you want me to do bookkeeping or financial work, I can do that too, but I hated it. I did it for 12 years. So I know I hate it. So if you want me to go back to doing financial work, I'm not that interested.
I love it. We've got a comment from the conscientious capitalist. Love that ingenuity, delivering the times to get inside the publishers. I thought that was brilliant, by the way, too. Thank you so much. That's from Greg Russick. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, that was really brilliant.
So yeah, that's part of being a writer and part of being in the publishing business. You have to find ways to get to a publisher. You have to find ways to get to the readers. And now in this time and age with Kindle and with Amazon and with all these other platforms that are out there, it's easier to get yourself out there. Now, the hard part is putting out something that's really good. And that's why I became a publisher, because I could sift through some of this stuff and I could see people wrote good stuff. They just needed help in formatting it, in formulating it, in finding the plot holes and fixing them and things like that. So, it's what I was good at. I was always writing. I've been writing since I was like 10 or 8 or something like that. So I've been writing for a long time. So experience matters, okay? But it's not the only thing that matters. And part of my website says that, you can't teach talent, which you can't. You can teach somebody to play the guitar, but you can't teach them to be Jimi Hendrix, okay? Mm-hmm. That was talent right there, You can't teach me to play the guitar. I tried. But you could teach them to play the guitar, but they can't write a song if they don't have the talent and the knowledge of how to put it together, what sounds good, what doesn't. And the same thing goes with writers. You could teach somebody I before E except after C, put this here, do that there, have a beginning, middle, end. But if somebody really can't string together a couple of thoughts and a couple of storylines, they can't be a writer. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I've got a couple of other questions that I want to ask you, but I'm going to take us to commercial break first. We're going to hear from me, actually, and from Alcini. Why not, right? About this platform, A Better You. And let's take a look. We'll be right back. Let me remove this banner first. We don't need that scrolling. Okay. Hello, I'm Dr. Jacalyn. Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn presents A Better You. And here to tell us more is the creator of A Better You, Alcini. Al, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. It's always a pleasure working with you. And everyone out there, you might be a coach working with individuals professionally or personally, or you might be a consultant working with businesses, or you might be a trusted advisor specializing in an area like finance, let's say, or the law or healthcare. Whatever of those roles you relate to, you all have one thing in common, and that is you're working every day to help people become better versions of themselves, a better you. And Dr. Jacalyn's A Better You program is an opportunity for you to express your expertise in a particular area for 15 minutes in front of an audience of people who are looking for help from people like you.
Yep.
So, Dr. Jacalyn, maybe you can tell everybody how they can learn more about this.
It's so easy. You go to abetteryou.tv and you sign up to book your session.
When all my broken sneakers started to pile up in the wardrobe, I realized that we have a problem. Sneakers are made from plastics, and plastic is not mendable. My name is Philip, and I'm one of the founders of Our Choice Fashion. How many times did this happen to you? How can eco sneakers save the world when they break after only a few months and we have to buy pair after pair that breaks? We are here to give you the solution, a choice for truly sustainable fashion in the world's first circular sneakers. On average, we all buy 3 pairs of sneakers each and every year. This adds up to 25 billion sneakers per year, of which most end up in landfills. This adds up to 350 million tons of CO2 emissions, the same amount as for the country of Italy or the state of California. So we started to develop a product that would have all the old-fashioned qualities. It is mendable, it has a classic design, and it has a natural comfort. Because we chose the best designer there is, Mother Nature. The sneakers get more and more comfortable the more you wear them. Made from vegetable tan leather and natural latex from the rubber tree, the sneakers are both sustainable and comfortable. These sneakers are made from pure raw materials that are both fully biodegradable and fully recyclable. The best thing here really is that when your sneakers need an upgrade, you just send them right back to us using the same bag that you got them delivered in. We then resole your sneakers, put on a fresh pair of laces, and give them a nice new polish. This means that you can wear your sneakers for many years to come. Our sneakers are more than sneakers. They are a circular function, and we developed a smart pull for you to step into your sneakers without stepping down the heel. This means that you get a truly sustainable grip. We've got a fully circular business model, and that's why we'll only produce sneakers on your demand. Book your product now and get that sustainable grip at a discount. We've been on this amazing journey for 2 years, and now we're inviting you to also make a choice for truly sustainable fashion. Try the world's first circular sneakers, 100% plastic free, and I can promise you that our choice will be your companion for many years to come.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn presents A Better You, where experts give us lessons to help make us better personally and professionally. My guest today is James L. Hill. James, it's good to have you back with us. Looks like your screen is breaking up a little bit there.
I'm starting to pixelate out of here, so we'll
Yeah.
go with it. All right.
No worries. So what I wanted to talk about was for folks who are out there watching or listening, this is your first time on this platform. And what do you think the value is on being a presenter, being on here on A Better You?
I think it's a very good platform. And I think, there's value to it because I know there's a lot of people out there who are looking for information. We are in the information age, and there is so much of it out there. Some people get lost just trying to find it. And I see your show brings that to people, and it brings it out front, and it gives them a way that other shows don't. Like that 15 minutes worth of me just blurting out everything I know about publishing, and you say, oh, that came off so natural. Well, you know how many times people ask me, how did you become a writer? How did you get published? How can I get published? That's why it comes out so natural, because I have said it so many times before. And this way, it's a good platform. It's a good way to communicate that to people.
Well, thank you. We didn't discuss that before, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I appreciate
No problem.
your transparency. So what I'd like to share with everyone is what I'll ask James to do now is I'll ask him to put together a 5-question quiz about his lesson and ask him to start developing a playlist. So what we're looking to do, what we are doing is we've partnered with a third party. The name of the company is Edgagement, Edgagement. A good friend of mine, Marty DeFonts, is the owner. She's in New Jersey. And so she already has this platform, Edgagement, which major corporations use for bite-sized learning. So the 15-minute lesson is something that keeps somebody's attention. If you ask them to take 2 hours, 3 hours, then that looks great, James. Yeah. To take 2 or 3 hours to study something, they're just going to lose interest. So our platform is really geared for you to be able to use your mobile device to look at 15-minute lessons. So if James decides he wants to develop a playlist with us on this platform, A Better You University, there'll be a little movie trailer. So you can click on James's movie trailer and you can watch one of his lessons and decide, the 10 seconds, just like if you were to go to another platform, and it's like a teaser, right? So then the person could buy your lesson, take the quiz, and then depending on how they do on the quiz, they can get certified. And in addition to getting certified, they can be part of our rewards and recognition program. So we're asking for content creators who are experts like James to come on our program. And in addition, maybe you have your own content already. Maybe you can break it down into 15-minute presentations. And then we offer 2 options. One is the do-it-yourself, meaning you take your clip, and let's say from the show, for example, James decides he wants to put this up on A Better You University. He'll go to YouTube, he'll find the show, and then he'll use an editing software, and he'll edit out just his 15-minute presentation. He will take the 5-question quiz, and then he will go to a website with a template form that he's received. He'll upload all the information himself, and then his lesson's ready to go. Let's say you want to have a custom intro and custom outro. The commercials you saw today, except for the last one, Our Choice Fashion, they were made by Dr. Jacalyn LLC. So we actually do custom intros and outros. So why would you want to have that? Because it looks very professional, quite honestly. It tees up you and what's in the lesson, the name of the lesson. And so then we can have that. You can hire us to do the editing, and then we take it and put it up on the platform for you. So we're rolling out a Better You University before the end of May, and we're encouraging content creators to come on and do 10 lessons, or if you have your own content, to help you package it to put it up on the platform. So I know that's a lot. If anybody's watching or listening has any questions, please, send us comments. James, any questions or thoughts you have about what I just shared?
Well, that sounds really, really a good plan and a good option. I have always thought about teaching creative writing, and seems like a good way to go. Like some places here in Virginia, I live in Virginia Beach now, and we have the Adult Learning Center. And you can usually, when you go to the Adult Learning Center, you can usually take courses in like creative writing and, arts and things like that. And so it is now a more accessible way of doing it, because now you don't have to go someplace to learn these things. And that's one thing that the pandemic has taught us. A lot of things can be done online and be done, remotely and actually worldwide. That's one of the things I found out when I started a publishing company, was that you really have worldwide access now, which makes it so much better. And so, yeah, I like the idea. Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you. So one thing I just want to share with our audience is there are other platforms out there. Obviously, there are definitely other platforms where content is housed. So what makes this different? Well, first of all, you are on a television show. You are on a radio show, right? We're recording this, it's live, and then you'll be able to go to any of my social media channels, and it's going to live there in infamy. The other thing is that we have 3 A Better You shows every week. So I'm always promoting it, and that's exposure that you're not getting from other platforms. The other thing is we have gamification on our platform. So people love to play games. So when they go on, they find your lesson, they take the quiz. There's going to be games there too. And why do we care about games? Because it keeps people engaged. It keeps them on the platform. So maybe they're not on a lesson that you did. Maybe they took some other lesson someone else published. Well, then they have more time. They're still on the platform. They're like, oh, look at this. This is for new writers. I'm a new writer. Let me go over here. And so you get exposure that you might not have otherwise. And then the last thing is that the reward and recognition program that we have, we're going to be offering reward points that people can use on Journey to a Better You. And that's our in-person events. We've got an RFP that's coming out tomorrow. It's for 10,000 people, coaches, consultants, trusted advisors, people in human resources, people who supply to these entities, people who want to learn from these entities. And so we're going to have an in-person event where there's going to be breakout sessions, there's going to be networking, and then there's going to be a trade show. So if you want to have your own booth and you want to, let's say you have your books, sign books, and people come in and buy your books and you sign them there. So that's something that people will have the ability to get reward points to use for that program. So that's it. That's A Better You in totality. So thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you for having me.
James, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
All right, you can go to RockHill Publishing, all one word, .com. And that's the publishing company. I also have JL Hill Books. That's actually my own webpage. And then you can always find me on Facebook. The RockHill Publishing page. There's James L. Hill, JL Hill, the difference between James L. Hill and J.L. Hill is J.L. Hill wrote books like this, which is made for a more adult audience. And James L. Hill wrote all kinds of nice little books like Pegasus, which is a sci-fi book made for not a young audience, but if you don't really want the shocking details of murder and sex and all that kind of stuff, stay away from J.L. Hill. He's a madman.
Thank you for explaining that. That's interesting because it does make a difference who your audience is, who you're writing to, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Branding and, like you say, your audience. Because when I started writing, I knew I was going to write in these two different genres and the two different directions of thing. I automatically knew I would have to separate myself, and it's a bad idea. They tell you right away, build one platform first and then transition into the other platform. But I'm not the type of person that's going to just work on one side of the fence. And so it's like I'm building both platforms at the same time. And I switch off because that's how I write. Like I said before, I divorced myself from my book. So I'm always writing, I'm always having something in the works, and I'm always working on something else. So when I finish doing one thing, I divorce myself from that. I go right in a different genre. I work on that one, and then I come back with fresh eyes to go back to the other one and say, okay, now when it's time to put the meat on the bones, I got fresh eyes. I have the fresh ideas. I go back, I read the whole thing over again before I get started. And then I know, okay, now since I read this whole thing over again, I know where I want to do different parts. I know where I need to stitch different things together. And it's just the way I work. It's just me. And since I'm a multi-genre author, I decided I'll build all the platforms at one time. It's a lot
Well,
more work.
congratulations.
Fun.
That's outstanding.
Let me ask you, you said you got a book coming out. What's your book about?
My book, thanks for asking. My book title is Behind the Green Screen: How to Succeed in the Live Broadcasting Business. And my book is a how to do what it is that I'm doing right now and how and why I left the corporate world to do this. So I actually built this platform, which is now 14 shows. I started in August of last year, and I've built this. I've learned how to not only interview, but produce, direct, and be a broadcast engineer. So I've actually got 3 of computers that are here that I'm taking us out over social media, and I can also take live phone calls. So the book basically gives people all that they need to know to do what it is that I'm doing. Plus I share personal stories in it as we go. So stories of what happened when I was in the corporate. And then I also give the reader in each section a key learning.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Thank
I
you.
like that.
Thank you. So I'm looking forward to releasing it. I just have to build up enough pre-sales before I do. So I haven't started pre-selling yet, but I think we're going to start on Monday.
Oh, good.
So,
I
yeah.
haven't started pre-selling Killed with Black Blood yet either, but I'm about to.
So can you give us a peek about what that's about?
All right. Well, the Killer series follows Morris Mojo Johnson, also known as Bulletproof, and he's a black guy from the South Bronx, where I used to live, and it starts off in the 70s, and it's him and Nikki Nails Roxy, who happened to be the son of a mafia boss, and together they climb the ladder of the underworld. And so it starts off when they're teenagers, and they start off by Nikki always had these great ideas. And so his one idea was to rob a rival family money drop. And he figured no one's going to know they're stashing their money in my territory. So the guy must be skimming money from his family, and no one will know. And of course, that doesn't work out and things happen. And these guys are horrible, horrible people. Let me tell you that right now. They are absolute criminals. So they will do just about anything, and they do. And so that's book 1, and then that launches you into the whole world of the mob, the mafia, gangs. And as we go along, they grow up, and as they're growing up, you get to book 2, which is Killer with Three Heads, where Mojo's daughter is kidnapped, and it brings him back to New York to find her kidnappers and to find her. They're trying to leverage her against him for what he knows and what he does. And they're into the drug wars and all that kind of stuff, the war on drugs. So it's a lot of intrigue between government agencies and crime families and stuff like that. So it moves on. And now the new one, which is Killed with Black Blood, comes up, which runs simultaneous to Killer with Three Heads. And now this is Nicky's story of how he become the Godfather, or how he grows into the position of being the Godfather. So book 2 and 3 kind of like parallel each other. So you see Nicky's story and you see Morris's story as they kind of like converge and overlap each other as their individual way of life and what they do. And then we'll have book 4, which is Killer with Ice Eyes, and I'll tell you about that when I get closer to it. It's actually, the skeleton has been built.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so fascinating. Where can we find your books to purchase them?
My books are on Amazon and all the usual electronic places. And you can go to RockHill Publishing and you can buy them directly from RockHill Publishing. And any format, hardcover, paperback, ebooks, and any other places.
And for those who are listening on the radio, we are streaming the banner RockHill Publishing. So it's RockHill Publishing.com. It's Mr. James L. Hill, also known as J.L. Hill, depending on your taste for violence and sex.
I couldn't have said it better.
Well, James, it has been a real pleasure having you here today. I hope you'll come back and see us again, because I know you have tons of lessons in there and we need to learn from you. So my takeaways today for all of you out there, if you are a first-time author, please reach out to James L. Hill, RockHill Publishing. If you've got a first draft, please don't send it to a publisher, because nobody's going to want to read it in that format. And you've got to have a content editor. Do you have holes in your plot? Do you have consistency throughout your book? Are you inventing characters in the middle of nowhere that they don't make any sense? Are you putting in a sub story in your story that it might be beautifully written, but it doesn't need to be? Maybe that's for another book. If you're doing a series, you want to make sure that everything is in sequence. And as James said, plan everything out before you start. If you want to do a story that is going to be multiple books, have the whole thing formed out. Have your skeleton, as James said, and then start to put meat on the bones. But don't write one book and then decide you're going to do a series and try to figure out how's that one book going to relate to this. Do it all ahead of time. Right, James?
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, this was fascinating. Any final comments or thoughts that you want to share with our audience?
If you are a writer, don't give up. It's a hard road to hoe, but do not give up. And also, a little realistic, don't think that because you wrote a book, you're automatically going to become a bestseller and make $1 million. People just don't shovel money at writers like that. Never have, never will. There have been many writers who are very famous. You know their name. They die broke. Okay, so it's not an easy road to be an author. So be ready for the long haul. Have some thick skin, because not everybody's gonna like what you write. So you gotta have some thick skin. It's okay. Their prerogative. You write what you like. There are people who would like that too.
I think that is such a key point that you just shared, is that people think that because somebody wrote a book that they're, the money's rolling in, and that's not the case, because whomever it is that you're publishing with, they're taking, some of the big publishing houses, even Amazon takes a piece, right? And if you want to be a best-selling author, my understanding is, and we need you to come back and do another lesson on this, is that you have to sell so many, you have to have a revenue, and you have to have so many reviews, for example, like on Amazon. And I also think that you have to have purchases from various entities. It can't be one entity buying 5,000 books.
Right. That will not get you on the bestseller list.
Right. That's on the no list. That's, you just wasted all that money for your 5,000 books.
And-
But maybe you
in
want to
fact-
buy the books and give them out for, but you're not
Yeah.
going to get bestseller status. So
When people ask me, how do I become a bestseller? I say, well, you go out and buy about 10,000 books, but don't buy them under your own name.
that's right. That's right. So thank you again for being here. It's a real pleasure. I just want to remind people that we've got the dating show coming up right at the top of the hour, 4:00. It's all about dating. My co-host is Lisa Manioki, and we have a dating coach who is an expert. He comes to us from London. His name is Johnny Castle. So look forward to seeing you over
Great
there.
name. I might use that.
Yeah, Johnny, I know. It's terrific. So thank you again, James. Thank you to our audience. We love you. We appreciate you. If you want to watch this broadcast in its entirety, you can hop over to YouTube, and we'll see you hopefully on the dating show. James, I look forward to catching up with you again. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.